many of you have heard of the Ukrainian Public Relations Army, or the Ukraine PR Army? You probably haven't heard this name, but you've most definitely been subjected to their work on television, in print articles, radio interviews, all manner of different media appearances. Redacted correspondent Dan Cohen is tracking the Ukrainian PR Army. Dan, what's this all about?
Clayton, I've been saying since the beginning of this Ukraine war that this is the most propagandistic war in the history of human warfare. And the Ukraine PR Army is a really important cog in that machine that has been completely overlooked until now. So what it is the Ukraine Army is an organization of PR professionals who guide Western media coverage of the Ukraine war. Its website says it seeks, quote, to highlight the truth and to fight the lies about the Russo-Ukrainian war. Now, the founders of this project are also involved in a Ukrainian Ministry of Foreign Affairs propaganda operation that I revealed in March 2022. That operation disseminated a series of graphics praising the Azov battalion, the Ukrainian fascist leader from World War II, Stefan Bandera, portraying coffins of Russian children, calling for NATO to enforce a no-fly zone with graphics of missiles exploding everywhere. And the Ukraine PR Army was launched at the exact same time, and it involves the same people. It's obviously a project of the Ukrainian government and its masters in Brussels and in Washington. And the Ukraine PR Army is directly involved in facilitating Western media coverage of this war. On its website, it credits itself for helping more than 2,200 media outlets, magazines, TV, and radio stations, more than 3,000 journalists around the world, more than 5,500 materials, meaning reports or coverages, and more than 8,000 mentions. It has more than 8,000 mentions on social media, and those materials, it claims, have reached 7.3 billion people. It's an enormous, massive propaganda operation by their own admission. So which outlets are they? I don't know. Take a guess, Clayton. Which outlets are involved in this?
Let's see. I'm just going to say right off the top, the Associated Press. Let's see if the Associated Press, are they involved?
I did not. They don't list the AP, but they might as well be.
Let's see. The BBC.
There you go. All right.
Go down that didn't take me long. I'm just going down the alphabet in my brain. The BBC, CNN. CNN involved?
Yes.
Oh,
yes,
CNN's involved.
indeed.
That's a shock. The New York Times, Washington Post.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe it'd be easier for me to say who's not on the list. There's probably few and far between. Exactly.
It's the entire mainstream media. Like you said, Washington Post, BBC, NBC. Here's what they list, okay? So the New York Times, CNN, Fox, too many to list. And then we also have the non-US based, France 24, for example. And so that's a tiny fraction of the more than 2,200 outlets they claim to have worked with. There are even testimonials. Here's one from Carl Bostic, a producer for PBS NewsHour. Remember, we revealed that on Redacted that PBS NewsHour collaborates with CIA favorite, and you could say CIA cutout, funded by CIA cutout, National Endowment for Democracy, Bellingcat, okay? So here's Carl Bostic, producer for PBS NewsHour. He says, when PBS NewsHour sent a team from the U.S. to Ukraine, the fighting around the area of the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, sorry for that pronunciation, was at its peak. NewsHour not only wanted to report on this for its U.S. audience, it wanted to go further by telling the stories of those Ukrainian workers still working at the plant with the Russian military now in control. This was a nearly impossible task. But with the expertise and experience of Lyuka and PR Army, NewsHour was able to tell that story. So here on PBS NewsHour's website are the reports Carl Bostic produced. None of these reports disclose that they were facilitated by the Ukraine PR Army.
What do you mean? So when you watch these reports, there's no disclaimer, nothing pops up on the screen. We should let our viewers know that this entire report was created in the Ukraine PR Army's offices.
Exactly. There's no disclosure of that. I mean, it should have like some kind of maybe some label, U.S. Ukrainian government propaganda, something like that.
Right.
But no, there's none of that. It's all secretive. So obviously they're trying to conceal that this is just government propaganda. Here's another testimony from Ana Alonso of El Independiente, a Spanish newspaper. The work of PR Army volunteers has been a great help in finding sources to write articles about what is happening in Ukraine. The network of experts they collaborate with is also very useful. We thank them for their help. Okay, so more, they're giving them sources. We have Gulliver Craig from France 24 saying, the PR Army have been useful to me on a number of occasions. They have a huge address book and also the trust of the people they're in touch with, which can help a lot with getting interviews. They swiftly respond to requests for contacts and also flag up interesting events or stories from time to time. So he's openly stating that the Ukraine PR Army is feeding France 24 stories. Here's another one from James Franey of the Daily Mail. Staffed entirely by volunteers, the Ukraine PR Army provides an essential service to journalists covering the invasion of Ukraine. Their volunteers have helped my newspaper set up interviews. They regularly send compelling story pitches and have a wealth of valuable contacts that we've been able to leverage and enrich our coverage of the most important story in Europe since the end of the Second World War. So more confirmation that the Ukraine PR Army, a Ukrainian government operation, is feeding the mainstream media in the US and in Europe stories and telling them what to cover. They even have, check this out, the Ukraine PR Army has a war coverage manual that instructs journalists what language is appropriate and what is not. So we can see here the word crisis is not acceptable. There's no crisis in Ukraine because that would mean it's domestic, as if there wasn't a war inside Ukrainian borders for 8 years happening before Russia crossed Ukrainian borders. But the term war they want you to use war. And here it says Putin's war is unacceptable terminology, which is kind of counterintuitive because we see that in Western media all the time. They want you to say Russia's war because, according to the Ukraine PR Army, all Russian Federation citizens bear responsibility for their government's policy. It's not just Putin. So they want collective punishment. All Russians, it's like a racialized thing. All Russians support this and are therefore responsible.
Interesting. This reads like an Associated Press handbook, like what the AP style guide. Here's what you can say. Here's what you can't say as a journalist. Here's how you should present your reporting. So you can't use the word crisis because that implies domestic crisis. And you can't say Putin's war. And yet, of course, we hear that from the White House. So it appears that the White House might not be on the same page as the Western media.
Yeah, the White House really needs to get in touch with the Ukraine PR Army and get their terminology right. But my favorite part of this propaganda operation, Clayton, is that they tell you who is a reliable speaker and who isn't. So this part of the project is funded by American tax dollars through the U.S. Agency for International Development, or USAID. You can request a speaker on any given subject, and they'll connect you to either Ukrainian military, Ukrainian government officials, or kind of someone very closely connected to them. Or you can actually ask the Ukraine PR Army to compile a dossier on a person, and they'll determine for you if that person is reliable. If they, do not cite Russian outlets, media outlets. So this is funded by American taxpayer dollars. That the Ukraine PR Army will tell you who you can talk to and who you can't.
So holy crap. So let's just play this out a little bit. Let's say a guy like David Petraeus, right, a known liar, absolutely in the tank for Ukraine on this, and has spouted a number of lies on national television. So if David Petraeus, I want to see if I'm going to have David Petraeus on our show, I can reach out to the Ukraine PR Army, so CNN, instead of booking these people themselves, basically outsource this to the Ukraine PR Army. We'd like to have on an expert to talk about military strategy. Who do you recommend? Who do you, Ukraine PR department, recommend? And here's a list of people we recommend. And then, okay, well, David Petraeus sounds like a good guest. Can you provide me a dossier on that person to make sure that that person is in the tank, is fully supportive of this narrative? In which case, yes, we've researched that person. We think that that person would make a great guest for CNN. Like, that's what? What?
Exactly. That's how it works. So I don't know. I'd love to see what they say about me. I mean, I'm sure it would be a kind of entertaining dossier, but so
it would just be a one-word response. It would just be nope. Sorry.
No.
Yeah. Do you want to have Dan Cohen on to talk about the war in Ukraine? No, we do not. CNN does not want Dan Cohen on there. Nope.
Clayton, it gets even better. The Ukraine PR army actually relies on other groups to even do this. The most notable, there are 3 groups they list, but the most notable among them is called Stop Fake. And if you haven't heard of this, Stop Fake, it's a self-described fact-checking outlet funded by the National Endowment for Democracy, the Atlantic Council, a couple of European governments, and indirectly by George Soros's Open Society Foundation. Stop Fake was hired by Facebook in March of 2020 to, quote, curb the flow of Russian propaganda. But they were found to be employing multiple figures closely tied to violent neo-Nazi groups, and the journalist who co-authored the expose about these neo-Nazi groups received death threats and actually fled Ukraine, but then it didn't even stop Facebook from continuing to work with Stop Fake. So Facebook had no problem with these Nazis, and clearly the Ukraine PR army doesn't have any problem either.
Yeah, I guess they don't really have a strict vetting process to work for the Ukraine PR army. Like, oh, I'd love to see that escaped the dossier that went through HR, their HR department. It says here you're a Nazi. Come on, welcome aboard. That sounds great. We're okay with that, and we recommend that you go on television and do national media hits for CNN and other other networks as well.
As long as they don't spread Russian propaganda, it's okay. You know, a little Nazi Sig Heiling saluting, going to Nazi festivals, rock concerts, that we can overlook. But okay, so for all of the Ukraine PR army's work, it actually won. It was here in New York City a few months ago, back in May, and it won the Platinum Saber Award for Best in Show at the world's biggest PR awards program in New York City. So won this huge award. So congratulations, not only to the Ukraine PR army, but to all of the media hacks who made it possible at the New York Times, at PBS, Washington Post. You all made it possible. So
they had a big fest. They had a big event. The Ukraine PR army wins their award. They come to a big, nice black tie dinner in New York City, and they're welcomed. Thanks for doing all of our heavy lifting for us. Anytime we need a guest on a television show or a quote in an article from a military expert, thanks to the Ukraine PR army, they've vetted these people and provided those sources. Thank you so much.
Exactly. I mean, that's like modern journalism, mainstream journalism, is that it's like you don't think, you just do. It's like they think for you. The Ukraine PR army is going to think for you, and then that thinking is transferred to the reporters. And then here, we at home watching, well, we don't have to think either. Then those thoughts are just transferred to us. There's no thinking is necessary.
It's one big narrative on a plate served up for people. This is exactly what Tucker was talking about a few nights ago on his first show back on Twitter, that we don't know what's happening because they control the narrative and they keep it from us. And this is exactly how it happens. Dan Cohen reporting for us in Washington following the Ukraine PR army. We appreciate it. I didn't know anything about this. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.